now starting our third session on our second panel, named The Merge of the Two Worlds, an academic and practitioner view on sustainable finance, opportunities and challenges. We have our speakers, Nassina Habous, advisor to the chairman for sustainable development and head of the sustainable development department at the Financial Regulatory Authority. And also we have Professor Dr. Mona Al-Bannan, Associate Professor of Finance at the German University in Cairo. So as we said, this session will be focusing on sustainable finance as one of the instruments for sustainable development in developing and emerging countries, definitely in different areas in the world, but we want to see the application of such financial instruments in emerging countries, the opportunities and the hurdles that they face for implementation. So we'll start with Dr. Mona Al-Bannan, providing us with global trends on green bonds. Actually, this session will focus more on, or the first part of the session will focus more on green bonds, and then we'll follow with the application of this in Egypt by Nassina Habous, and also talking about financial instruments, sustainable financial instruments in general in Egypt. So Professor Mona will start with the global trends in green bonds, focusing on top 12 countries. And then we will move to a presentation focusing on the application or the opportunities or the actual application actually of the green bonds in Egypt and the hurdles that this financial instrument is facing. So Professor Mona, the floor is yours.
Okay. Shall I share screen?
Yes.
Okay.
And if also you want to present your esteemed guest.
Okay, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Professor Raghda and Professor Noha, for giving me this chance to join this conference, which is very interesting, actually. And I would like to, I hope that you will find my presentation insightful and inspiring as well. First of all, I would like to welcome Professor Günther Löffler, Professor of Finance at the University of Ulm, and my partner in the project, co-author in the project of the Green Finance. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation and attending our presentation for today. I will share my screen now for the presentation. Okay, this is my presentation to be green finance, which I'm focusing on the green bonds, and I'm giving some insights over the global trends on how the green bonds are growing rapidly, which is our project, me and Professor Günther. I would like to start with this slide because this figure is actually a huge one, which will let you know how much this market is very important now and growing rapidly. This is the total value of the market, of the green market, which is social, including the social and the green and sustainability bonds. It's amounting to 1,401.59 billion, which is a very huge number. Yeah, we should consider this and consider this market. This figure, by the way, is as of today. It's a very hot figure. I downloaded from the database, which we are working on. Worth to mention that the green bonds, our project, the data basis, which is specialized on the green bond, is very rare, which are not offered by Reuters, Thomson Reuters, for example. So we did a lot of effort actually to find reliable data to depend on. We depend on the EF Environmental Finance database and on the CBI, which is the Climate Bond Initiative database. Now I'll start my presentation. This is the agenda. I will introduce and define the green bonds and what's the role of green bonds in financing the transition to a low carbon economy, and what are the main characteristics of the green bonds. I will present display the figures which we get from and retrieved from different two databases across countries, across time, across the years, I mean, across the currency, different characteristics which will raise the flag and show how much this market is important nowadays. Okay, worth to mention also that our research is covering the period since the first bond is issued by the EIB, the Environment, the European Investment Bank in 2007. So our sample span from 2007 till 2019 because of the financial data. But this presentation will be covering from 2007 since the first green bond till 2020 because of availability of the data till this period. Okay, I have to start, of course, by telling the truth that Earth is getting warmer, and the reason behind this is the extra greenhouse gases and the concentration of the greenhouse gases, such as the carbon dioxide, such as the methane, that trap the sun heat inside the Earth atmosphere and causing this feeling that the weather is warmer. This change in the natural green gas house is because of human activities, of course, is because of burning of fossil fuels like the oil, like the coal. Also, although to a lesser extent, but the clearing of land for agriculture and industry and other human activities lead to this extra concentration in the greenhouse gases, which now raise the attention very much to the sustainable finance. And sustainable finance refers to the process of taking consideration of three pillars: the environment, the society, the social, and to the governance pillars of or dimensions of the CSR, the corporate social responsibility, when taking the decision of finance and investment. So now, in order to take good decisions in finance and investment, we should take care and keep into consideration the environment, should be taking care of the sustainable finance, should be taking care of projects that will be benefiting the environment. So environment, social, and government dimensions are now taken high consideration by scholars, in addition to the professionals. Scholars found in their researches that it increases the value of the firm, it decreases the risk, it decreases the cost of capital, and it also enables the access to cheaper finance. I found a very nice table here that is gathering the three pillars: the environment, the social, the governance, and it is in the report of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and published in 2009. Now, the three pillars, okay, and the main themes of the three pillars and the main issues. For the environment one, and we are focusing in our research on the environment one, the environment is, the theme is the climate change and the carbon emissions. The increase in the carbon dioxide emissions lead to different risk, climate change, different two risks: the physical risk and the transition risk. Okay, and also the natural resources and the use of the energy, the use of the water, the use of the land. All of these should be efficiently used, and pollution and waste also. And we have the clean transportation, the green buildings. All these could be very beneficial projects under the environment pillar. For the social pillar, it's focusing on the workplace and on the employees and ensuring health and safety and ensuring the product safety and the customer protection and other projects that will be benefiting the community as a whole. For the governance one, it is ensuring how the principles of the governance principles could be aligned the interests of the ownerships with the managers, okay, and discipline managers, with different tools like board of directors and the ownership, the compensation scheme, and other tools that will be helpful for the corporate governance. Okay, we are focusing on the first one, the environment. Okay, and now after this definition for the sustainable finance, we are focusing on the green bond specifically, and we are trying to ask or answer the question if the green bonds are efficiently enhancing the environmental performance and the financial performance as well. We started to gather the information about the green bond, and as a definition, a green bond is not different from the conventional bond. It's a fixed income debt security, and it is used to raise capital. But now comes the difference. The difference is that the green bond is, the proceeds of the green bond should be used in projects that will be enhancing or will be on the climate and environmental projects that will benefit the environment as a whole. The proceeds, according to this definition, that green bond is the same as the conventional bond, but the proceeds should be used in one of the projects that will be benefiting the environment. So we can use it in could use it for the use of energy efficiently, like smart grids, like energy storage, in renewable energy, such as the solar energy and wind energy, pollution prevention, natural resources and land use, aquatic biodiversity conservation, clean transportation, water management, climate adaptation, and eco-efficient products, and also green buildings, which we are going in the next slides to see. I'm going to display this use of the proceeds and which one is the one that is dominating the other uses. I'm going also to present the development of the green bond over years in different countries, 12 countries, and best or the largest top 12 countries, 5 countries, and just give indication after this presentation how much it's important to study this market, to give it some effort, because it will benefit the whole environment and the whole society. Also now, in addition to the use of the proceeds, which is different from the conventional bond, the green bonds could be issued like the conventional bond by the government or the corporate, okay, or financial institutions. But also we will find some development agencies, like they are sovereign government-owned organization, or they are federal agency. So they are different from the corporation that they are owned by sovereign government ownership. And sovereign issuers will be the countries, will be national governments. Supranational will be organization that will be including members, sovereign members, such as the United Nations, such as the EU organization. We will see now how much the bond market is growing rapidly. And as the OECD mentioned in its report in 2019, that the issuance of green bonds becomes increasingly important in order to mobilize the private finance for low emission infrastructure projects. Okay, now the green bonds are labeled green if they earmark the proceeds for a climate or environmental projects. So the issuer is the one who is labeling the bond as green bond, but it's not complying, is not necessarily to be complying with standards, it's not necessarily to be complying with principles. So labeled green means that the bond is for an environmental project. But in order to be certified bond, it needs to be complying with standards. And we have two standards, the green bond principles, okay, and the climate bond standards. And the climate bond standards are established by the Climate Bond Initiative, the database which we downloaded the data from. This is one of them, and another database which is the environmental finance. For the green bond principles, it is established or not established. It's developed actually because it is established by investment banks like the Merrill Lynch, like Citibank, like Crédit Agricole in 2019. However, it is now developed and monitored by the International Capital Market Association. Okay, these principles depend on four components: the use of proceeds, and they defined the use of the proceeds, the process for the project evaluation, management of the proceeds, and reporting. So we have now some characteristics that differ the green bonds, each green bond from the other one. These characteristics will be related to whether it is certified or not, what is the issuer type, how they are using the proceeds, what is the country, what is the currency, different characteristics that will differ will differ the green bond from the other one. Okay, now we are going to start displaying some figures for the different categories. Green bond is one of the categories. It is labeled green, and the use of the proceeds will be used for environmental benefits, while the social bonds are using the proceeds to create a social benefit. The sustainable bonds will be there to be used in projects for a combination of both, combination of green and social projects, while the sustainability linked loans are loans given to a borrower who will be using it in sustainability in general. So we have different categories for the bonds, and they are under this sustainability finance, sustainable finance. So this is the data over years, starting from 2007 for the green bonds, as that was the first year, that was the first bond to be issued in 2007. You can see here how much it is increasing, the number of deals increasing to reach 6,821 as of December 2020, while the social bond started in 2006, and now in December 2020 it reaches 287, and the sustainability bonds and sustainability linked, I add them together to reach 387. So we can see how much it is developing over years. The green bonds are increasing as a sum of the issue volume in dollars. It reached in December 2020 $1,091,635,000,000, which means this is $1,091,000,000,000. This is a huge figure that should be considered. For the categories, it's clear now from when we use pie charts and bar charts, it makes things more clear. It's increasing now for the green bonds deals. It dominates the other types of bonds categories. It is dominating them by 91%. And for the volume, yes, the green bonds, again, it's dominating other types or categories by 72% of the total bonds. Now, if we come to the use of the proceeds, we found here that the green buildings dominate other uses by 56%, and then comes after the energy efficiency, and energy again is very important, takes a good consideration, as energy efficiency could be the good example is a smart grids and energy storage. And we have, after that, the water management, 26%, and renewable energy and transportation. So we can say that the first five uses, which are green buildings, energy, water, renewable energy, and transportation, dominates other uses. And this is the pie chart that shows the percentage to the total percentage. And here the green buildings is 34% and comes after 16% for the sustainable, 21% for the energy, and then 16% for water management. This is over the whole period, 2007 till to 2020. Now, the other database, which is the Climate Bonds Initiative, has another classification. Maybe they are just considering a few, and under these few uses, we have under this umbrella, we have different projects. They are just considering the energy, the buildings, the transportation, water, and land use. So again, here for the last, the big portion of the pie is 40% for the green buildings. And then comes after the water management, and then the energy and transportation and land use. So again, green buildings is dominating other uses. This is the top 20 countries, and we need to know globally how they care about this green finance. And according to our data, the number of deals here is the top for the United States, and with a total volume or issue volume in dollars, 21%. This is the volume, and this is relative to the total volume of issuance of green bonds. It's 21% of the total, and then comes China, France, Germany, and then the Soviet Union with a supranational bond. So this is maybe more clear and displays the idea. We have the US on top of countries, and then comes the China, and then France. But maybe because I'm doing this for the top 12 countries, if we consider regions now, you will find that the United States is the top, but for the Euro and the European region, it becomes in the first stage, in the first place. You will see this now. We have here top 12 for the volume, the issue of the volume, 25.3 for US, and then comes the turn on, we have 16% for China, and then France, okay, and this is the number of green bonds. 4,100 out of 6,824 is dominated by the US. Although Europe, when we now have a look over the regions after we finish the top 5 countries, now the top 5 countries, yes, US, and we have France, and we have China, and then Germany and the Soviet Union. Okay, across the 5 countries, we have again the number of green bond deals. US is dominating 74.8, almost 75% of the total deals. Now I have just compiled data on the 5 countries according to the issuer type. So I was I need to get data on the countries in each country, which is the type of issuer that is dominating or having the highest percentage. I found in Germany that 43.5% largest issuer here is the agency, same as the United States, but in France, I found that the corporate is dominating the green market, the green bond market, and for China, I found that the financial institutions is dominating the green market. Now again, across the regions, Okay, I found that although United States was when we were looking at fragmented countries, we found that United States in the top, and then comes China and France. But now Europe comes in the top with the largest percentage of 41% or almost 42%. Okay, for Europe, and then North America, 23%, and Asia, and then the supranational and Latin America, and then Africa. We can see now that Africa has a very, it's an underdeveloped market and don't have investments in this area. I think we have to concentrate more on this investments. Now the top currencies.
I'm very sorry, Mona, Professor Mona, I'm very sorry you need to
Have no time. I have just a few slides, just going over the currencies. Shall I continue, or you don't have time?
We don't have time, but please conclude.
Quickly. Okay. We have now for the currencies, again, we have the euro on the top, and for the deals, you will find that a number of the green bond deals in the USA is on the top. For the issuer types, we found that the corporate is on the top. The corporate is the largest issuer here, and comes the financial institutions, and then the agency and supranational. Okay, for the certification, and hopefully, although certification is very important, as we said, because labeling green is done by the issuer, the issuer of the bond, but to be complying to standards should be according to specific standards and should be certified. But over years, we can see that certification is growing, and the external review also is increasing. Okay, this is the last. So the external review is high here in Europe, while in Africa it's low for the certification. And also for North America, certification and review is higher than the other regions. This is finished. I like to have your questions if anyone would like, and I wish you are interested in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Mona. Actually, we will open the floor for questions after Messina hosts the presentation, but I have a quick question for you. You have presented this data regarding the emergence of green bonds and sustainable bonds in general, and in different areas in the world, and the top 12 countries as you mentioned. I'm interested to know if you have any numbers regarding the financial returns on this.
Regarding
The financial returns, are they profitable?
the financial return?
Yes. Do you have numbers for that?
Actually, our question for our research is how these green bonds is, or whether the green bonds are effectively influencing or affecting the financial performance. So this is what we are actually examining, if it is affecting the performance and the returns of the companies, and also not only the financial one, but the environmental performance. Because now you find that the market, according to this presentation, it is a huge number. The market value is very high, but is this figure is reflecting a good environmental performance or not? So we are testing the effect on the environment.
Yeah, it's clear that sustainable or green bonds should have at least positive effect on the environment. But maybe it would be interesting to know if it has positive financial returns as well. So it would be financially sustainable as well, not only socially and environmentally sustainable.
Yes,
So
yes.
I think you're getting there through the research, yeah? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. hear you.
So you're getting there. By the end of the research, you'll be able to assess
Yes, our research
sensitive
is still in
performance.
process. We are working on it. So this is the question, and we are trying to answer this one.
Yeah. Professor Mahmoud Khafif, can we postpone your question, please, after the presentation of Messina? Okay, thank you. So now we will proceed with the presentation of Messina on the application of green bonds and sustainable financing.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, thank you very much, Sina, for joining us while you are sick. I know that. So please excuse me, Sina, for.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me, and I think it's a very interesting session, really. And I have to thank Dr. Mona for a very informative presentation, and quite complies with what we have in mind. And hopefully my presentation will provide more insights on the Egyptian case. And I think it comes as a very well prepared second part to your presentation. I would like to just introduce myself more properly. My name is Sina Habous. I am a senior advisor for the chairman of FRA, the Egyptian Financial Regulatory Authority. We supervise the non-banking financial sector in Egypt, and I had the new Sustainable Development Policies and Sustainable Finance Department. We're mandated towards introducing new policies and regulations and promoting sustainable finance in the sector, and hopefully on the long term, steering towards a whole transition of the non-banking financial sector towards a sustainable non-banking financial sector. One of our hallmarks that we've done so far is trying to promote green bonds. Although the title is Sustainable Finance, we will be, as Dr. Raghda said, we'll be focusing on green bonds. I will not go through the details of defining a green bond. As I've said, Dr. Mona has described it enough. Enough said, it's exactly the same like any type of bonds, like a normal financial bond tool instrument. However, it's directed towards green projects. Again, I'm not going to mention this. It's about explaining the bond. The bond is the bond principle, the interest payments, the interest rates, and how it is returned towards the end, just like any normal bond. But maybe I would also give a pointer to Dr. Raghda that so far the returns of the green bond market internationally has been extremely successful. I don't think there is the rate of default is negligible. Accordingly, that's why it is exponentially increasing all over, especially that a substantial part of it is backed by international organizations, financial institutions, and financial investment groups, and a substantial part of it is sovereign. Accordingly, the return is guaranteed for anyone who's investing in it. So it's actually quite a safe bid if you would want to understand more about the return of green bonds. So why are we keen as a regulatory institutional body to support green finance or green bonds and promote it intentionally? Because we are keen on achieving as a country the SDGs Agenda 2030, and of course we have also our local 2030 policy strategy for sustainable development and its own goals as well. In order to achieve sustainable development requires funding, substantial funding in different domains and sectors. And here comes the idea of promoting sustainable finance, promoting green finance as a very important tool towards achieving SDGs Agenda 2030 and Egypt 2030 vision. Of course, I'm not going to go into details when it comes to international numbers, but again, although this number maybe is 2014 and maybe it needs an update, but there is a huge investment gap when it comes to sustainable finance. If we are to achieve SDGs by 2030, and we're talking about developing countries, we need more than 2.5 trillion a year. Some even say in the Middle East, we need more, up to 5 trillion a year for a finance gap if we are to achieve the SDGs in 2030. And please do understand that these figures are way before COVID-19. So if we consider or take COVID, hence the very importance of promoting green finance tools, and one of them, of course, is green bonds. The business case for green bonds, again, it is provides investment opportunities for investors, for ongoing businesses and, of course, industries, promoting, of course, for example, sustainable production, promoting the increase of industrial activities, promoting the increase of foreign direct investment. It provides also businesses and investors with new market niches, possibility of achieving and penetrating new markets when it comes especially to energy efficiency, as been said, green buildings, green construction, and all these sectors have proven lucrative on a global level. And especially in Egypt, the clean energy sector is lucrative and has been profitable and is projected to be even more profitable as time goes by. Of course, as well, promoting investors green bonds support investors in their promotion of their communication brand, in their raising awareness and understanding of their own environmental programs. It provides them with customer loyalty, marketing gains, reputational understanding, things like that. I will not go through this as well because it's the same concept. Is how is it attractive to the investor? It has already proven attractive because of these different pillars or prerogatives. So what have we done so far as FRA to promote it? We've put in place a process of introducing green bonds as a regulation, as a law, that took place in 2019. And then we've put the executive regulation of implementing green bonds issuance, management, and reporting as well. We've done a lot of awareness campaigns, info sessions, workshops to introduce the concept to investors in different domains and sectors in Egypt, in partnership with a number of reputable agencies, international, local, private sector associations, even NGOs. We finalized a taxonomy for green projects to support interested investors in identifying projects that could be named or certified as green. We're in the process of finalizing investor guidelines, so we can support and give them a complete manual of how to issue a green bond nationally. We've also, as I've said, engaged the private sector. We're working on the market development by engaging international investment groups, international investors, and international investment banks. And we are conducting with them several needs assessment to understand their priorities when to find local partners, local Egyptian company and business partners in order to issue green bonds. But of course, there is challenges when we talk about green bonds in Egypt. And mainly, we have a not very strong local market for bonds in general. Egypt is a more inclined economic environment, and this as well presents a hurdle when it comes to encouraging or convincing the private sector, local private sector, in adopting green bonds. We lack incentives, especially the need for fiscal incentives, and it's usually in the hands of ministry like the Ministry of Finance. We need to inform more, and we need to provide more information, access to information, more awareness, more understanding, and engage more the private sector and show them the case for green bonds. Again, because awareness or understanding green in Egypt when it comes to the private sector is not yet as prevalent as, for example, Europe, with the exception of maybe multinational companies that have headquarters in Europe and the US, or have strong partnership portfolio or investment portfolio outside Egypt. They usually have a good understanding of sustainability and green finance and the opportunities, the lucrative business opportunities when tackled or when adopted. Understanding the rules, we're trying so much to engage the private sector in understanding the process that we've put in place to help them engage, or to encourage them to facilitate the process of them issuing a green bond. We provide technical support, we provide trainings in partnership with the World Bank, with the IFC, with the GIZ, among many others. So we have now two ongoing tracks when it comes to green bonds in Egypt. We have a sovereign and corporate bonds versus corporate bonds. Sovereign bonds are issued by the government, corporate bonds are issued by companies. FRA supervises corporate bonds, while the Ministry of Finance is the one who engineers and issues and oversees the administration and daily operation of green bonds, sovereign green bonds. Sovereign green bonds has been issued for the first time, and this is a very good news and a success story. In 2020, Egypt has been the first country in the Middle East to issue sovereign green bonds. It was addressed the international market, not the local market. A number of consortiums were organized on the phase of almost 6 to 7 months. International consortiums of investors and intermediaries to administer and to buy and to invest in the bond. And the bond has been a success. As I've said, sovereign bonds are not supervised by FRA, but they are administered by the Ministry of Finance. Egypt sold about 750 million US dollars in sovereign bonds, which is a great success. And mainly the green projects that it targeted is infrastructure mega projects mainly in energy, in construction, and in transportation sector. When it comes to the national context of corporate bonds, the situation is a little bit more challenging, as I've said. We need to encourage the private sector to adopt the idea of using green bonds for their own benefit, to raise capital, to invest, and use it as a viable tool for investment. And we are not yet there. Although I do have to say that there is an ongoing deal, 2 deals. One of them is we're trying to push for Bariq, which has been mentioned as a case study in a previous presentation that I've heard while I logged in to the conference. Bariq is in the process of issuing a green bond, and we're trying to support them. And there is another big deal with the IFC and CIB to issue a green bond, a corporate green bond for about $100 million. So these are two deals are in the pipeline that we've been working hard on pushing forward, but has been stalled tremendously by COVID, I have to say. The main legal framework that we've worked on, as I've said, the regulation that has been amended to include green bonds and green sukuk as the main regulation that has been approved by the parliament, and now it has been in effect for more than 2 years. We've put in place, but before that, maybe the type of green bonds that the law approves. The green bond use of proceed bonds, which is the most globally known type of bond used, which is based on the use of proceeds bond, which Dr. Mona has talked about more immensely. And there is a green revenue bonds, where the obligations and revenue is shared by the investor and by the issuer at the same time. There's also green securitized bond, which is the bonds issued against a guarantee of specific portfolio of projects and specific guarantees. So if for example, the bond has defaulted, they will be able to receive the return back and their investment backs from this portfolio. However, globally, and even the bonds deals that we're trying to contract and we're trying to talk about mainly fall under the first category, which is the standard green use of proceeds bonds. We've approved a list of international verifiers, and this is very important when we've designed the process of green bond implementation. For any company that is interested in issuing green bonds, we've opted for a certification and third-party guarantee of a project to identify it as green. Versus the norm of secondary opinion that has been pioneered by the green bond principles of ECMA. So it's a much more stringent approach that is encouraged actually by the climate bond initiative and climate bond principles, which are more rigorous and more stringent. Accordingly, in 2019, we've issued an initial list with the top 11 third-party verifier companies that can act as green verifiers for any company or any business that want to issue green bonds in Egypt. And the list is growing. We're adding, as we receive requests from green bond verifiers, we add them and validate their position, we add them to the international list. But because we are a little bit afraid that enlisting the help of international companies would be prohibitive when it comes to costly costs, and we are trying to encourage on the long term that SMEs and small and medium companies and family businesses in Egypt to issue green bonds. So we also opted to create a local registry for local green verifiers based on individual expertise and individual institutions, and we've put together a list of criteria so they'd be able to register locally. However, I do have to say that we are now trying to register at least two companies or two institutions with a certain expertise as a local third-party verifier, but we also trying to find partners, international partners, to start projects and programs on how can we upgrade existing technical and think tanks and academic institutions that can play this role, because we are lacking in this domain. So this is a whole new market that we're trying to open in Egypt, and we're just starting the whole process. We tried also, these are the different criteria for the institutions. We also try to provide incentives as much as possible as FRA, because we do not have the authority to provide fiscal incentives, which are the most important incentives. We cut the costs of issuing a green bond taken by FRA to almost 50% for interested companies who would like to issue green bonds. Green bonds initiative, basically, the whole process that we have done is based on the international green bond principles and the climate bond initiative. We made sure that the process is international, so it will be easy for any company, even if it's an international or it's a partnership with an international company, to apply the same principles here. They are all approved and accepted. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and it's the same process. It's the use of proceeds, the project evaluation, and how the project is selected as green, and how these proceeds are measured explicitly, and how it's managed throughout the duration of the bond itself, and of course the reporting and disclosure. The use of proceeds. Sorry. Is aligned with international standards, as I've said, and we have to make sure that there is a certified green verifier report coming to us, telling us that these projects are green. A type of issuers can be entities, companies, authorities. We can also have companies We can have international and regional institutions, so anybody can invest and issue green bonds locally. And of course, this is the very broad heading of the taxonomy that we have when it comes to what is green, because again, there is a variation of understanding what is green from one country to the other, from one region to the other, and we really cannot adopt one taxonomy globally, because globally countries varies and countries are way more advanced. For green, for them is zero neutral emission projects. This is something that we cannot accept or do, that we perceive as green so far. The process mainly is obtaining FRA's approval. We have a credit rating, same as conventional bond, selecting a licensed underwriter, whether an investment bank or as such, and of course pricing the green bonds and determining its par, its risk analysis, and its interest rate. And basically that's it. As I've said, we have challenges, but at the same time we're pushing forward with a number of companies to issue the bonds, and hopefully after the finalization of COVID and moving forward, we can say that we have an issuance, a corporate issuance, just like we had a governance, a sovereign issuance. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nina, for the elaborate presentation. I have just 2 follow-up questions, and then we'll open the questions to the audience.
Sure.
You said that CID and maybe another corporate will be issuing a green bond soon. Yeah. So this would be like the government, it would be an international offering or a local offering?
No, we are trying to seek for a local offering, so we'd be able to say corporate bonds issued in Egypt. It has to be local.
Okay. Do you think that there would be a demand, local demand for that, or a local awareness given the hurdles that I have mentioned?
No, not really. I think those who would be interested in issuing a green bond locally are those companies that have international or regional invested interests. Those who are seeking credit rating, branding abroad, or seeking a new partnership abroad, because now more and more companies and more international investors and investment banks are putting conditions, stringent conditions when it comes to green, and they are pushing companies and pushing partners to either invest or issue or comply with governance or ESG reporting, etc. So basically, it has to do with international pressures more than anything else, because we lack the understanding in the private sector locally of how important green is. Unlike the government, the government has realized the importance of green on a global level and the interest of international investors, and accordingly, they have done a marvelous job in issuing the sovereign green bonds.
Tina, quickly, what is the status of the other sustainable financial instruments?
We are trying to push for sustainable insurance, and it's been a little bit successful, because under sustainable insurance, we have inclusive insurance, and it's been now more on the rise, so it's been successful. We're trying to push for also green insurance, and we're working on it now by introducing a climate change risk assessment. This is very technical. I'm not going to go through it now, but once we have this set in place in this new sector, we can start initiating new products, insurance products that are green. We're also working with the stock market and local investment companies and group to create new green venture funds. All these are new categories, or just new, can be categorized under sustainable finance or green finance. We're also talking to the IFC on a gender bond. It's still too early, but we're working on that as well. Yes.
Thank you very much. So now we will start to receive questions from the audience. We'll start with a question from Dr. Hakim, Professor Mahmoud Hakim.
Yeah, I will just unmute. Yeah, thank you very much. 2 very interesting presentations. I'm a civil engineer, but I'm always eager and keen to learn from other fields. But I'm also dealing with construction management. I have 2 questions, and the one is, what is the process to determine whether a project is eligible for financing through green bonds. And the other one is if an investor sees finance this project and say it is a project in the green area, say a solar plant or something on the water sector, are these bonds for investor preferential terms if you compare them to the normal market instruments of finance? So if comparing financing bonds, are they encouraging an investor to go this way with financing his project when compared, let's say, to pure commercial credits through banks?
Yes. Would you like me to answer, Rabda?
Yes, please.
Okay. So basically, the approach we've taken is that we have the issuer, the interested would like to issue a green bond in Egypt, would have to hire a green third-party verifier, a specialized company or institution, whether global or national, that can verify according to international, two sets of international standards, and they have the right to choose either, which is the Green Bond Principles of ICMA or the Green Bond Climate Bond Initiative Principles. Accordingly, they provide us with a certification and a report that not only certifies, but also provides KPIs, and they also provide a framework on how they are going to approach monitoring the project and certifying it's green throughout the duration of a bond. So the third-party verifier is the authority that will give us the vouching and the expert opinion on that the project that the company is trying to raise funds for through green bond is deservingly green. As an FRA, as an authority, we reserve the right to how can I say that? To oversee, or even to, for example, go for having a third-party auditing by even have a third expert to supervise and to audit the expert opinion even. But this is a practice that is done throughout or once we have a number of projects ongoing. So basically now we are willing to accept green certification as the main way to guarantee that the project is green. And we also, I'd like also to say that we are finalizing a taxonomy because Egypt does not have a national taxonomy for green projects. So because of this void, we had to create our own taxonomy. So we'll be able to provide a little bit of assistance for companies to identify that these projects or these sectors are considered green in the first place. And we also created investor guidelines to help them throughout the process, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when we talk about the revenue or the of green bonds, it is supposed to be exactly the same as any revenue coming from any bond. And this is very important to put forward. The philosophy is not to provide any extreme or any external subsidies, because we want to make sure that there is solid background or solid, how can I say, grounding in the market that will continue. We are the government is afraid that if we've put in place extensive subsidies, that once the subsidies are lifted, the green bond issuance or the green bond market will halt immediately. And internationally speaking, there's not enough practices and the provision of incentives for investors is not really encouraged. Why? Because when we talk internationally, that the investors themselves are very interested in buying and investing in green projects. Because now, especially internationally, companies are multi-stakeholder. They are part of the stock exchange market usually, and accordingly, they answer to the shareholder, to the final customers who are educated enough and encouraging enough that companies need to be green. This is, of course, not the case in Egypt by any means, and therefore there is a need for us and for academic institutions, for think tanks to support the creation of awareness not only for the private sector, but for different stakeholders, different investors, different players in the local market. So thank you. I hope I answered your questions.
Okay, the next question is from Professor Nader.
Yes, thank you so much for the panelists. Thank you, Dr. Mona. This is a very interesting research. And thank you, Sina. You're a sustainability champion, I know, since a long time. I have two questions, one for Dr. Mona and one for Sina. My first question is, I noticed that you mentioned that green buildings dominate green bond proceeds. And I remember yesterday, Dr. Mahmoud mentioned that buildings are a major contributor to waste, if I remember correctly. My question is there a specific reason for this? Are we seeing a development because buildings are a major contributor to waste and they are even more than factories and so on? Is this why green buildings dominate the green bond proceeds? Or is there any other reason that you read about?
For the green buildings, I think yes, it will be. Of course, I think all of these environmental projects will be affecting each other. Means that the waste from the green buildings or from constructions and others, and maybe Professor Mahmoud can tell us more about. These construction process that will generate waste and increase the need for some use for these proceeds in the waste prevention and reduction and the water pollution, and all of these will be related to each other. This is what I think about. But for the use of the proceeds in general, okay, we have different. They are not limited to what I mentioned according to the environmental finance database, which is classifying many uses at the same time. And worth to mention that one green bond could be issued for different uses of proceeds, not only one. I mean that one bond could be issued not only for green buildings, but it is for green buildings, energy, and waste at the same time prevention. It's not just one. I just classified it. I did this classification to know how much green buildings is contributing to the use of the proceeds, how much the waste or the water management is dominating or consuming how much of the proceeds of the bonds. But at the same time, the database is providing the data that many of them are used for the one deal or for the one issue of the bond, could be used for several uses, not only restricted to one. Another classification was for the CBI, which is the Climate Bond Initiative database, which is classifying it in a different way and just including it under 5 umbrellas, not 12 like the environmental finance. So at the end, I understand from what I read that the waste or the pollution and other processes could affect the other processes. I mean, the production and the building and the construction could be affecting others in the environment, and this is logic. I think that's why classification and separation is very difficult, and it is only mentioned as different uses at the same time in the databases. I just wanted to break down these uses in order to understand more what is the one which is really affecting or maybe causing the spread to other waste or other negative effects in the environment.
Thank you.
I answered you.
Yes, I understand that there's an overlap.
Yeah.
It just seemed to me like an interesting observation, because I would have expected the proceeds to go more towards green factories, green production, more sustainable energy. That's why I found this a bit surprising. Yeah. Thank you. A question to Sina. So as not to take much from the time, my question is, I understand that you are not responsible for the banking sector, but I'm curious to know your 2 cents as a practitioner about to what extent, because I know a lot of friends in the banking sector, and since long time I've been hearing that they are trying to move towards evaluating projects and giving loans based on how sustainable and green the projects are. Based on your experience, to what extent is this true?
Actually, the market is picking up. The international investment groups and funds headed by EBRD, even Islamic Bank, European Investment Bank, African Development Banks, IFC, all of these have injected lots of funding, lots of capital, and partnered with a number of institutions, no less than 5 to 6 banks now in Egypt, with the sole mandate of providing green financing, green credit loans, and they've been success rate has been, I think, how can I say, good, okay, because the problem is not with the financing, really. I have to say the problem in Egypt is the lack of a diverse portfolio of green projects.
Mm-hmm.
On the corporate side, and this has been my problem, our problem in trying to push for any company to invest in. It's easier for the government to fund mega projects as green. It's way easier than fund smaller projects for corporations or find green projects for corporations. For example, we've been working back and forth with IFC and the CIB Bank because they pledged to issue $100 million, which is a huge number. And I have to tell you, we cannot find a pipeline for green projects for $30 million. We can't find. So this is the main problem. It's the financing is there, and I always say to people, as a sustainable finance expert, that the money is not the issue. In Egypt, that is not the issue. Is having the availability of the sector. Most funding is going towards the energy sector, and energy sector is getting clean energy sector is getting saturated. That there is a need to expand in other green sectors, whether green building, whether green construction. There is inclination now for the government towards investing in green, sustainable transportation, and I'm projecting this would be the next lucrative sector in Egypt to invest in when it comes to green. But as I've said, the problem is not the banking sector. They're trying to work hard. International investment groups that are partnering with them are providing them with enough technical support to create viable green facilities that are adequately monitored and have the appropriate mechanisms to assess KPIs within the domain or the acceptable international standards and norms. But again, the problem is finding the corporations that are willing to invest or to adopt and operate green projects in Egypt. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Rauda, the floor is yours.
Can I add a small part, because it's very interesting. When I read in the United Nations handbook in 2019, the handbook was presenting some diversification in the green finance services, not only restricted to bonds, but the retail banking and mortgage, green mortgage. There is mortgage, green mortgage, and there is an offer to reduce in the interest rate if the customer will be meeting environmental criteria. So banks in North America, where this UN handbook was presenting the different financial services in North America, they are providing different services, different offers, trying to enhance this green investments, trying to offer private equity, green venture capital, other portfolio asset management portfolio funds, which are also green, and they are trying to devote all the proceeds for different environmental benefits that will be, and the insurance as well. So we have different areas, and I recommend if this could be applicable, Sina, that serve more services, more other than the bonds, could be offered, could be maybe trying to enhance the different areas by yes, like this example, reduction in the interest, other offers if mental criteria issues. Thank you.
So we have two final questions. One question from Professor Mahmoud.
Yeah, regarding the buildings, buildings represent 40% of the energy consumption. So putting a green hand on those would be, I think, rather easy, or let's say comparatively easier to be implemented than going to big corporates, etc. However, if I'm the owner of a hotel and I want to equip my hotel with solar water heaters and solar cells, etc., etc., so coming up with relatively small investment volume, let's say of 20-30 million. And I went through this by myself, through this experience. I talked about earlier about a small small solar plant. So how can I help those people in opting for a green finance through green bonds, for example? So one of the obstacles I found was quite an amount of procedure. I'll not call it bureaucracy, but I call it procedure. We talked about the certification that costs all money. Yeah, if I'm going to an international auditing company that will check my project, I will pay for this. And the second is, I would encourage people to go for such kind of solutions with preferential terms. If it's easier for me to go for a private finance somewhere to any bank at the same terms, why should I go through these procedures? So I need some encouragement, and either on the cost side, and capital costs are a good part of the cost, or on the income side, tax incentives, let's say a higher rental income because I have a LEED certified building. So we have to think about encouraging people to go this way, simply to also create more projects to get into a greener path, especially in the buildings, in the industrial processes, in whatever areas. So I think these two aspects have to be considered.
Okay, I totally agree with you, actually, 100%. As I've said, when it comes to the most effective incentives, it will have to be fiscal incentives, and we've tackled it a number of times with the Ministry of Finance, and they are not willing to support any kind of anytime soon. And this is the country's direction. This is out of my hand, really, and out of our authorities' hand. Number one, and as a sustainable expert, because I'm not only an advisor, sustainable development expert, especially in sustainable finance, I always go ahead for a number of green facilities that is found in the banking sector. If it's a small company, for now, with the current conditions, I would highly directly direct them toward a banking facility, and they would be able to find funding right now, more than 2 to 3 years ago. If you can even notice, even on a global level, green bonds has not been successful because it is cost prohibitive for small and medium companies, for smaller companies across the world. It has always been used as a scalable tool for bigger and mega projects. And you'll always find that issuers are talking about huge numbers. And this has been admitted by even the World Bank, the IFC, and now they're thinking of new modes and new ways on how to support. There is an ongoing talk in the EU on creating a new facility dedicated to support the issuance of green bonds for smaller businesses. However, for us, we are trying to push for a bigger issuance as our main directive right now. If we're able to be successful in a corporation issuance on a bigger scale, like the one that is being negotiated between the CIB and the IFC, we can even start thinking about what's next. This is our own, of course, perspective here in Egypt, and I've also shown you the perspective on a global level, and from a totally impartial view, I would suggest that they head for banks right now. Thank you.
Okay, one final question that is sent by a message from Dr. Hela Amin. Thank you, Dr. Mona and Ms. Sina, for the presentation. My question for Ms. Sina, I know it might be too early, but are you familiar with whether there will be a database for green bonds issuers in Egypt and the related post-issuance reporting? Will that be available?
Of course, this is part of what we're doing at FRA, but again, it's too early to talk about this because we don't have even one solid yet issuance that has taken place. But of course, with time, if the market picks up nicely, eventually within 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the dates of issuances, we will start having a compiled database for this. And of course, we'll even contribute. And this is something we're creating now, a sustainable finance center, a think tank actually under FRA that will be launched this, and I'm directing it, launched this month. And part of its work is providing data and statistics for green bond and green facilities in general in Egypt. And we are actually in negotiations with the Climate Bond Initiative to have a shared database. Yes.
Great news.
Yes.
Because we usually have problems of information, buying information.
Yes.
So it will be one of a kind.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Dr. Mona and Ms. Sina, for very insightful presentation. Thank you very much for the engagement of the audience.